It's Rog. It's Saturday, first full day of Euro 2024. Oh, fullish. Thanks to Fox. Deciding not to wear the 9 a.m. games. Who needs to broadcast those? That's a choice. Bassmaster fishing, still a bigger sport in the United States, clearly, than the football. But so much took place, and we will live it all with you. Today, the sweet, free-flowing, goal-filled footballing feast that we've revelled in. Euros. Goal, crazy. Switzerland giving Hungary a good swatching. Spain battering Croatia. And the Italians making Albania look like the best team in the world. But only for about the first 23 seconds. As we'll look forward also to the games ahead tomorrow. And by those games, I mean England versus Serbia. England expects every man to do his duty, not just on the field, but in the old extracurriculars with the fearsome Serbian ultras, if you know what I mean. We'll talk about it all with you GFOPs who can ask us anything, tell us anything that's on your mind. And my guest, the host of Early Kickoff, Men in Blazers Media Network's morning show, which I love. It graces its own pod feed. And every single morning tells you all you need to know in 10 minutes or less. The show is set to relocate tomorrow to the Euros. Yes, or should I say, Early Kickoff invades Germany. It's a joy to welcome ahead of his 3 a.m. flight tomorrow morning. It's Mr. Sammy James.
Good evening. How are we doing? Yes. Football doesn't sleep, and Early Kickoff definitely isn't sleeping tonight.
You're really putting the bloody early into Early Kickoff. We will talk about your journey, which is planes, trains and automobiles. I'm so excited for you, really, to broadcast from the Deutschland to our ears every single bloody morning. And Sammy, I'm not a doctor, but I can very easily diagnose you got a nasty case of Euro fever. Can you tell us, what's the vibe like in the United Kingdom at the moment? The English part anyway. Sorry, Scotland fans. Before England and full first invariably lukewarm performance tomorrow. Is the nation awash in St. George's flags? Can I get a temp check?
I wouldn't say awash with St. George's flags, but I think that my feeds, both Instagram and X yesterday, were awash with people getting very excited about the Euros. There is something over here that I think people, obviously Euros aren't as big as World Cups, but people do love the Euros. It is such a special tournament, and I think there's also that extra little bit of anticipation that realistically we can win the Euros. The World Cup's a massive lottery, right? You've just got those extra few nations in there. You don't know what you're going to get, but the Euros is realistic for a country of England's size to win. So I think people are getting excited. But as ever, as England fans, everyone's doing the little bit of self-deprecating. Oh, no, Portugal are good. Oh, Italy are good. Oh, no, Spain are good. But really, deep down, every England fan thinks we can win it. We can.
I actually think the England have about as much chance of you winning the Euros as the US men's national team do of winning the Euros. But we will talk more about England in a minute. But first, let me remind you, dear listeners, how you can get stuck in. And then we're going to break down the action for today's games. This is a Do It Live, which means, dear GFOPs, you're a large part of the show. Come with us. Let's wildly knee-jerk overreact to the first 24 hours of the Euros together. Ask us questions about football or life. Here's how. Just scan that QR code on the top left of your screen. Take you into a Zoom where our producer J-Dubs, who was up bloody early with me, filming with Joe Scally, and now here we are again. It'll take you into a Zoom with J-Dubs. Come and be with us. He'll set you up. It's audio only. You don't even need to put a shirt on. And if your question or comment can't wait, slap it in the chat. We'll be reading them throughout the show. Get your likes in. Come be with us. All I can say is you're watching this live. A million thanks to the great people at BMW for making this possible. We have a forthcoming new YouTube series called Ultimate Road to Glory, in which we had the joy of visiting 4 Copa America host cities that the United States are going to play in. We ate all the barbecue, soaked in all the culture, and celebrated their distinct, passionate football cultures. We so bloody love making them. Thanks to everyone at BMW. The first episode On our visit to Charlotte. Oh, that city. I miss you, Sir Minty. Will be out next week. Before we dig in, I want to raise my third first Michelob Ultra of the day to the memory of a footballing great, Kevin Campbell, who passed today, the former Arsenal, Forest, but really an Everton legend. He's a Londoner, but he got our club. A striker. Death was announced today, age just 54. Too young. God, it's just a gent who came through with Arsenal, won the league with them, ultimately arrived at Everton. And this will not surprise you. When he came in, we were in a relegation battle. I know it sounds familiar, but Kev arrived and just lifted the morale in the locker room like few footballers have ever seen. Blasted 9 goals in his first 8 games. I'll say that again. An Everton striker, 9 goals in his first 8 games and saved us almost single-handedly. Proceeded to become our top scorer for a couple of seasons. Scored a derby winner at Anfield. And also, probably most importantly in all of this, became the club's first black captain. As I say, rest in peace, Super Kevin Campbell, a great man. Oh, he was as wonderful, Sammy, on the field, but he probably even greater off it.
He was. I mean, he's very much part of my early memories of watching the Premiership. I actually remember the ITV highlights show, the Premiership, and that was kind of the Everton that, Wayne Rooney and David Moyes and that era of Everton. And Kevin Campbell was one of the kind of shining lights. You had so many great centre forwards in that area. You had obviously Brian McBride.
Saved us from relegation. But
Big Dunk, of course. I think I would put Kevin Campbell in that era.
This was just he touched David Moyes. He saved us during the Walter Smith era. There's a beautiful image that Wayne Rooney posted on his social media today of young Wayne Rooney. I mean, even when Wayne Rooney was 16, 17, he looked about 32, 33. But he's just scored. He's on Kevin Campbell's back. 2 legends just riding together, almost from 2 different generations. A remarkable moment in time. Rest in peace, Super Kev. By the way, David in the chat says to you, Sammy, it's very early for early kickoff. Yes. God bless, and it's going to get even earlier when they move to Deutschland. But to the football on Fox today, my highlight, I'm going to say, the way the host, fantastic host, Jules Breach, calls our man, Alexi Lalas. She always refers to him as Alexi Lalas, which is very English. And also probably she's meaning it at this point. But God bless. Let's start with the game, which has just finished. Italy 2, Albania 1. Italy defending champions, who then proceeded to crap the bed and not qualify for the World Cup. A team unrecognisable from their last victory. I think just 9 members of that squad from the 2021 wonder are still on the team. And new coach, Powerballed Spalletti. It was a very odd feeling around this team going to this, in that they're champions, yes, but far less is expected of them. And Albania, dark horse material, unbeaten in their last 7 qualifiers. So many of their fans spent the run-up to the game snapping spaghetti in front of their Italian counterparts, a moment which has gone super, super viral. God bless them. One GFOP at Notorious FNTSY tweeted us and said, the Albanians have disrespected my culture. Italy by 50. But it was not meant to be at the outset. I'm old enough to remember when Italy were the most defensive, lockdown, deadbolt, catenaccio football team in the 80s and 90s, but no longer, because the Albanians pounced on the most casual Italian throw-in from Di Marco. Badrami latched onto the ball as it kind of bounced lamely, tamely in the box, and he just lashed home. Poor Donnarumma. I mean, I really felt for him. This man had just given his everything to the singing of the Italian national anthem with the passion of Gigi Buffon's Ghost, and suddenly had to pick the ball out of the net. Quickest goal in Euros history, Sammy. 23 seconds. Honestly, could it have been more shocking if Donnarumma had just been slapped across the face with a large calzone?
No, it was definitely the highlight of the day, I think, was Albania scoring so quickly as well. A magnificent moment, and one that I thought would rock Italy more, because I think the way that Albania set up, I think they'd been searching for that early goal, but as it coming up in the chat and I've seen it, maybe too early.
Well,
I don't know if I buy into the fact you can score too early.
I do.
But maybe
I believe
tonight.
that. Genuinely, I will go to my grave believing, as an Everton fan, genuinely, when we do score in the first minute or two, we have lost the game. Luca in the chat asked the question, did Albania score too early? Did Albania snap the spaghetti too early? The great Christina Stotts in the chat says, the real lesson, yes, is don't snap the pasta. Never ever snap the spaghetti. It's like, you know how in America they go mad when you stand on the logo on the side of the field or the centre of the field, snapping the spaghetti. That is fighting talk. And it is fascinating what you've said. Stadium in Dortmund, by the way, the yellow wall was a red wall. It's like a home game for Albanian fans. I think they took 80% of the tickets, and for a minute the place exploded. I agree with you. Italy, in that crucible, the tenacity of the response. Normally when you leak a goal early, it is nightmare fuel because suddenly you have to score and you are opened up. But Italy, it's almost just like a punch in the chops that brought them to life. They snapped into their rhythm. Within seconds, Pellegrini almost equalised, lofted a shot wide right. But on 11 minutes, they levelled the score, old school way, off the corner, taken short, exquisite pass from Pellegrini. The Albanian backline, which had only conceded 4 times in the whole of qualifying, totally switching off, allowing Bastoni of Inter Milan to rise like a bacala on the River Po. And 5 minutes later, it would get worse for Albania. Barella, that really creative Sardinian mischief maker with an epic technique, lashed home. He'd been injured in the run-up to this one with a muscular problem. And the joy as he charged off, almost the relief. I like to imagine that he screamed, "That's for the massacred spaghetti." This Italy, Sammy, they're passing really immaculate for large spells here. They do not seem as vulnerable as advertised.
No, they don't. I mean, there was a moment in the second half where Albania fans cheered just because Albania managed to get into the Italian half. That's how much control the Italians had of this game, especially once they got 2-1 up. And Barella's so important for them. The Italian media in the past 2 weeks is basically all they've been talking about, a bit similar to how the English press keeps talking about Luke Shaw. Italian press have been talking about Barella and his injury and whether he would be fit. And look, an amazing goal, and such an impressive turnaround, because I think yes, okay, maybe Albania scored too early, but to turn it around that quickly was hugely impressive. And I mean, in that group, it's now, I think the next game, match day 2, Italy versus Spain, is going to be huge, because whoever can win the group will have a nice little run You
almost said to the final, Sammy. You're almost shipping them all the way there. By the way, tell you who else was shipping them? Spalletti, the bald king of a coach, looking on. Fantastically handsome, in very hard to pull off, but he made it look easy. Hybrid tailored jacket, beautifully tailored jacket, with the hybrid tracksuit Italian lettering on the back, which is really quite a woof. I think it's technically called a jacksuit. It looks like if Pep Guardiola had one of his hybrid designs out there, and just decided he was going to gift it to another bald king. It is a choice. It is a dangerous game. I don't think I could pull that off, but he looks so bloody handsome. And as is Italy, we're trying to close out the game, knocking that ball around late on. The nerves did build up. There was a massive Donnarumma rib save off Minaj, stopped there being a sting in El Tail. Ultimately, a massive win for Italy in that opening game. Could have only gone better if Scamacca had scored. So important that Italy get him. I think there was a fine moment, tip wide in the first half, was the closest he came. A giant for his club, Atalanta. Just 1 goal though now in 17 caps. This team will need him to find that edge that they will need if this is to be a deep run. Talking about edge, Spain thrashed Croatia 3-0. And going into this one, all the talk was about Spain's young guns. The poster boy, Lamine Yamal. Just an incredible human being. You watch him on a field, the way he thinks, the speed, the intelligence, the fearlessness. This kid is a sophomore in high school, America. I mean, that is, you probably all know sophomore in high school. Can you imagine your sophomore playing in the European Championship as the youngest ever player? Starting a Euro 2024 game at the age of 16. A gent born after the iPhone was launched, after the last episode of The Sopranos aired, after Rihanna released Umbrella. I mean, these are remarkable realities we're watching. Pedri and Nico Williams, both 21. But there's also the Spain of Joselu, 34. Danny Carvajal, 32. And the opening goal scorer, Alvaro Morata, 31. So much scrutiny of this man. And his ability to summon anything resembling potency. Proud member of the former Chelsea striker poets department, 29 minutes. Fabian Ruiz stabbed the ball straight through the Croatian backline. Morata, one-on-one. A situation, you've got to be candid, that him, more than pretty much any big game striker not named Beto, loves to miss, but he masterfully created space with that first touch, finished lethally. With his second, he gave the eyes. You can tell he's been training with the greats, with Joselu. And 2 minutes and 17 seconds later, it would be 2. This time, it was Fabian Ruiz, the finisher, danced like a Spanish Billy Elliot. Carvajal capped off the first half with a fine finish from a Yamal assist. A Champions League final goal for Campbell, tick. Euro 2024 goal, tick. Spain, I mean, they were fast. They were lethal. They were clinical, Sammy, in key moments.
They really were. I thought that this one would be much tighter, especially given Croatia's record in major tournaments. Even when they always seem to perform better than the sum of their parts. They knocked out Brazil in Qatar. They always seem to bring it, but Spain just very quickly dampened their spirit, really, didn't they? And as you say, it's that mix of old and young. It's really odd, isn't it? You've got really old. They're mid-30s, but for a footballer, and then so young, and then them combining. It worked very nicely, and I think Spain have been one of the teams in this tournament that people have gone, oh, Spain are always good, but I don't think anyone's seriously talking about them as contenders. Lots more people prefer to talk about their neighbours Portugal as potential winners. Well, you got to look at that today. That's a real statement win, and it was over by half-time, really. And at that point, I think Croatia looked at it as damage limitations.
Yeah, I mean, Croatia, there's a sense going in here that their most important pieces were ageing, but ultimately it was their finishing that let them down, their woeful lack of clinicality, and in key moments they're defending utterly woeful. Those two combined to sink them. There was an Everton player, I can't remember who once said that our team only has two problems: we can't attack and we can't defend. And that was what Croatia were like in key moments today. Carl Tanner in the chat with a big one. Sammy, can I borrow your ITV or BBC account since the American broadcasters do not think it's necessary to, show all the Euro matches?
So which ones did you not have today? Was it Hungary, Switzerland?
No, we didn't have, the first game. It was not on, I think ultimately it was on Fubu, whatever that is. Whatever the channel is that I get. I've got all the bloody channels. I don't know where they are. And I'm kind of ferreting. I normally miss the first 45 minutes of any game, just trying to work out where the hell it's broadcast. Welcome to America in that early game. Not visible to most of us on American television because reasons unclear. There was a sub-licensing of it to the aforementioned Fubu because Bassmasters Fishing, it's big, the Pro Tour. I mean, soccer, America's sport of the future, as it has been since 1972, am I right? What did you miss, America? A very disappointing Hungary. Wilting against Switzerland, we were told were past their sell-by date, but they won emphatically, despite a late Hungarian rally, 3-1. Not a great Euros for nationalists so far. Scotland's Alex Salmond was there to watch his team crap the bed, as we'll discuss in a moment. And the Turkish, excuse me, God, I'm getting my nationalist autocrats mixed up. Orban's black shirts behind the Hungarian goal. Tough gents, and a tough day for those blokes. I did love the banner one Swiss fan had, which proclaimed fondue is better than goulash. Grrr. GFOP at Real Dan Weiner pronounced. Those are fighting words, Sammy. I mean, that really is. That's when you see a sign like that, it makes me want to commit football violence.
When I first saw that, I thought it said Grealish, not goulash, and I thought that was a weird sign to bring to the Euros. And then I was like, oh no, wait, of course they're not. I just see Grealish everywhere, don't I? Yeah,
you've been working a bit hard on early kickoff when you're saying Grealish instead of the goulash. I'd be candid. I'm going to go out on an edge here and just say I would choose goulash every bloody day. Give me a great goulash. I mean, fondue. Got people breaking past it. You got people besmirching goulash. I've got to say, we're just 36 hours into this bloody tournament. I think the football fans are just taking it too far, Sammy, already.
Well, look, I'm off tomorrow. I'm going to have to start researching every country's cuisine because it's clearly it's the theme of the Euros is to try and get your insults via food.
It's just knockverse, baby, 24/7. That's all it's going to say. First, they came for our goulash and I didn't speak out because I was not a goulash. That's kind of where we are. This is enough, people. Back down. It's only football. Do not hate on the ghoulie. We got to touch upon last night. Very, very quickly. It makes me bloody sad. The worst thing to happen to Scotland, beautiful Scotland, since, I don't like to be hyperbolic, but since the Battle of Flodden in 1513, Germany 5, Scotland 1. Germany, you heartless bastards. They took the field for the first time at home with a slight bout of worry. German public looking for a team they can believe in again after being burnt by dismal performances in the last two World Cups that made you truly understand what the word Schadenfreude really means. Also, there's a sense of political unrest boiling underneath this tournament. The policing, real concerns, even the trains. I mean, the Germans, yes, I do hear in my voice that they know how to make the trains run on time. Not anymore, Sammy, where you're going. It's going to be astonishing. The Scots, God love them. I love Scotland. My grandma was from there. She was from Glasgow. She was proper hard. And they not participated in a tournament outside the United Kingdom since 1998. So 200,000 members of the Tartan Army, which is just joyous. I think the Tartan Army it's diasporic Scots. I know there's like 5 million Scots in Scotland, but there were Tartan Army members who've flown in from America, from Australia, from all over the bloody world, almost on a national mission to drain Germany of beer, which has been magnificent to witness. Felt like they'd won the game before kickoff with that rendition of the Flower of Scotland, which was immense and powerful, and really made you feel a sense of surging optimism and fearlessness. But what came to pass, honestly, harder to watch than the death of William Wallace.
I heard a mad
it was hard.
stat that 5% of Scotland apparently was in Germany.
God, that's incredible. 5% of Scotland. And even just the underage ones did, I think, drank Munich dry. But God, it was hard. The Germans just kept sticking that ball back down their throats early and often. London-born, Chelsea Academy developed Jamal Musiala and Florian Wirtz, the stars, just shattered the Scottish will to live. Both, Sammy, they're both just 21. And almost simmer with the promise of silver. I try not to get too excited about the first games of a World Cup. The second goal, though, that pass from Kroos to Kimmich to find Wirtz. I mean, my God, that's worth all the knackwurst, right?
Oh, 100%. Another team, Germany, who I think everyone's not been 100% sure what to make of them because of the way that, they sacked Flick and then Nagelsmann's only had 4 games, but it's their own tournament. But they've also been poor at major tournaments recently. But then you actually look at some of the talent and some of the goals and some of the way that some of their, Havertz clearly, right, now is a different player to the player that he was 2 or 3 years ago. And actually you're now looking at the Germans going like, God, could they win it? I think there's a lot of teams who people have been quite quick to write off because of what's happened the last 2 or 3 years, but actually they've got players in form at the right time.
And they've got Nagelsmann. I mean, there was a couple. This is what's so odd about this Euros is there's a couple of very good coaches in this Euros. There's the Nagelsmann, the Spalletti. I mean, these are real coaches. These are not the kind of coaches who are normally in international football, old burnouts or just young guys who just couldn't hack the club career. Nagelsmann, I think is what is the difference maker here with this German team. This is a true tactician. His team 3-0 and a man up at half-time, ended with 5 different goal scorers, 6 if you include Rudiger. Even Nicholas Füllkrug scored. First time Germany have scored 5 in a Euros game. Is that good? Hungary and Switzerland also in the group. Possibly sterner test to come. We should probably. I mean, this is. Let me throw you on this rule. You do not believe in the score too early rule, which is objectively true. I'm sorry, but do you believe that we should probably avoid? There's a leading question, Your Honour. Sustained overruled. Do you believe, Sammy, that we should avoid crowning Germany champions until they played a team who are more than a paper bag with a hole in it?
Probably. I think maybe seeing Germany against the Swiss might give us a little bit more of an idea, because I thought that Switzerland were very impressive and they've got some good players across that squad. You actually look at it and you go like, ooh, no one's mentioned them as dark horses, but maybe they should have. I also just think that this point of the Euros right now, you are seeing quite a few matchups, which is top tier nations against nations that if it were as an ordinary qualifying game, you wouldn't blink twice that Germany would win that comfortably. They're not playing tier 1 nations. I think only maybe Spain, Italy in that first round of matches is when in the group stages is when you're getting kind of big hitter against big hitter. I think this tournament we're going to see a lot of teams put in impressive performances, but it's really when it gets to the quarterfinals that we're going to find out what teams are actually made of.
It is an odd tournament, Sammy. It really, really is. With this 3, and they've got this odd number of teams, 24. They didn't go to the full 32. So in many groups, 3 teams will get through, which kind of takes away the jeopardy. And I think it's led to this kind of high octane football from the off. But God bless Scotland, who are the opposite of high octane. Seeking to make history by getting out of the group stage for the first time ever. They got the reddest red card they'd ever redded. Could have been a tartan card that fell from Ryan Porteous. It was that savage, that crude. God bless Scotland. They created 0.00 expected goals. They're essentially the Everton of international teams. Brilliant quote, though, by the Scottish manager, Steve Clarke. He was asked about the 0.0 expected goals. He said, "I don't look at stats immediately after a game. Somebody told me Germany's expected goals were less than 2. That shows how clinical they were." Which is it, Sammy? Is he not looking at the stats? Or is he only looking at the stats and he wants to stat it up about?
Yeah, I think probably the latter. On the 0.0 XG, by the way, I don't know if you saw this, but Greg's, the famous bakery.
Sausage roll purveyor.
Yes, and they are doing a promo, and this isn't sponsored, where they're going to give away the amount of sausage rolls compared to teams' expected goals. So they were going to, if Scotland got 2 expected goals, they were going to give away 2,000 sausage rolls, and it was 0.00. So Greg's gave away 0 sausage rolls from their genius promotion that they did. They've had to spend no money, and they've got more marketing off their little gimmick than they could ever have dreamed of.
Oh my God, Greg's. And yes, if you're wondering, they spell Greg's the proper way with 3 G's. Tell us in the chat what the American equivalent of Greg's is. It's not Berhalter. But in my BMW ultimate moment of the match, the Scottish finally did score via a Rudiger own goal in the 87th minute. By the way, because it was him, I do believe legally it should have counted double. But it did cause many trolls who savour Scottish suffering, I'm not amongst them, to pull out this stat. Rudiger is now Scotland's joint equal top scorer in the Euros over the last 32 years. It's also bloody cruel. But the Scottish fans, God bless them, in that moment, proceeded to celebrate this truly meaningless goal as if it was a memory that they will carry forever. The whole stadium filled with chants of "You're not singing anymore" in Glaswegian brogue, singing at the German fans who were 4-1 up until the Germans scored again about 12 seconds later and silenced them. God bless Scotland. This team are part circus act, part multi-generational trauma. I mean, just they are Everton in an international kit, really, Sammy.
They are. They had some impressive results in qualifying, though. I think if they can re-find the form of about 18 months ago, where they beat Spain, they beat Norway, they beat Georgia, and they came quite close to beating Spain in Spain as well. I think ultimately just lost. So I do think that all that you really need to get through to the last 16 is probably one win, maybe, and draw 4 points, and you're definitely through. So there is a lot of hope of them actually reaching the last 16.
God, there is. But this, even as underdogs, this was a pretty insipid, disorganised, panic rash rabble of a performance. Final score on my boxing scorecard: Scotland fans 6, Germany 5. And thank you to every single Scottish fan. And there were many of you who tweeted us the reminder, which I think the whole world needs in this moment, that Argentina lost their first World Cup game and still went on to win it. Keep telling yourself that. Scotland, your game midweek against Switzerland is now pretty much the everything. I will say, to go from optimism to doom so bloody quickly, it felt like the funeral scene from Four Weddings, with that mourning Scotsman Matthew quoting Auden in his beautiful, beautiful accent: "Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone, silence the pianos, then with muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come." And lovely segue, in that it's quite depressing, to touch upon England, Sammy. We are under 24 hours away now from the moment when England kicks off their Euros journey against the immensely direct Serbia. 3 p.m. tomorrow. Please let it be on Fox. Please don't give it to Fubu. Great headline in The Guardian this morning: Southgate enters the age of unreason, where he can't win even if he wins. Sammy, does that sum up kind of the surreal mood around the nation at the moment as Gareth heads into his fourth, most probably final tournament as England manager? The nation is kind of divided if he's a genius for guiding us within touching distance of glory, or an idiot for taking his golden era of talent and not bloody winning anything.
It is very, very divided. And I think if you went down to most pubs in England, asked people their opinion on Gareth Southgate, I think generally the mood is fairly low. But I personally think if you look objectively at what he's achieved in the past, it's very good. But I think this tournament now defines whether he's been a manager that had some good times but ultimately was a failure, or if he becomes a success. And I think now it is literally, because we've reached quarterfinals under him, we've reached semi-finals under him, we've reached finals under him. You have to win it, really, now. And with the team and the lineup that's there, the defense is weak, but the midfield and the attack is incredible. The talent at his disposal, the amount of depth that he's got, I think that is it now. I think Gareth knows that too, that realistically, that's how he's going to be judged, is how this tournament goes. And that's it feels quite harsh that 8 years is going to be boiled down to a month, but I think that's how it's going to happen.
That's football, baby. And the English national obsession. There's always one going into a big tournament. I'm old enough to remember Beckham's metatarsal. None of us even knew what a metatarsal was till he broke it. And then we all just became utterly medically expert. Gerrard or Lampard was another one that went on forever. We love a national debate in England ahead of a tournament. And the one currently is who will play in midfield along Declan Rice. They've got a real feeling they're going to unleash the Trent Alexander-Arnold days. What's your feeling, Sammy?
Yeah, I think he will go for that. It's not what I would do. I think that Bellingham would do a better job there, and I think that you need to play Foden centrally because that's where you can get the best out of him, but I don't think that Gareth will. I think that Gareth will put Bellingham in the 10, Foden left, Saka right if he's fit. I like Trent, I do, and maybe against teams like Serbia, where we're going to have to break them down and they're going to be very direct, I think that Trent can play a great role. But yeah, it depends really. The ultimate thing is we all worry in England so much about the starting lineup. Matches are generally in international tournaments are won in the final 30 minutes. We obsess so much about who's going to start the very, very first game. And then once the games are underway, we kind of forget about all of this debate. It's basically just to fill the pages and pages of websites and YouTube videos in the build up into it. We
Don't take away my bullshit, Sammy. Do not take away my bullshit. Yeah, I mean, you're right. You speak to most managers and they'll tell you now the most important thing is a manager knows their finishing 11, not their starting 11. But the other area for concern, left back, Luke Shaw battling back from a season of injury in which he's played like 15 times. Kieran Trippier is seen as a tactical weak point. Quite fascinated by what Harry Kane feels about all of this. So much weight on his shoulders. But now, when he thinks of one of our own, the owners, essentially German fans who claim him, dude is now playing the Euros for England on his adopted home soil of Germany. I need to get a prediction for you, Sammy, about how you feel tomorrow is going to go. This Euros has been a goal fest of just optimistic attacking football. How much would you bet this is going to be the first dreary scrapper 0-0?
Oh, well, I was about to go all confident and say, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that both teams will score a hatful of goals. But actually, I think England will win, but I cannot see us keeping a clean sheet. It's likely to be a back five that's never played together. And that's mad going into a tournament. It's like a completely untested back five. And we're playing against someone that I, as a Fulham fan, know extremely well, Alexander Mitrovic. And I can bet you anything he is chomping at the bit to get a goal tomorrow. And he just will. He just... I mean, see Mitrovic scoring.
It's so funny. In the English debate... we don't really think much about Serbia. We're self-obsessed. Like, we're either going to do ourselves in or we're going to find our rhythm. Serbia are not a bad football team. As you mentioned, two of their three most important players are currently playing in the Saudi Arabian League, which makes him even more of a wild card. Mitrovic, who you just mentioned, and Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, teammates at Al Hilal, which can cut one of two ways. They can either be off the pace or still fresh, fairly undented, ready to roll. Because I do fear for the amount of miles the Premier League players on this England side have run already this season. There was a staleness in that 1-0 loss to Iceland, just dead-leggedness. I'm sensing a dull, underwhelming, unconvincing opening performance, a narrow 1-0 win. I think that Anthony Gordon has got something to do with. Can I get a final score from you, Sammy?
I'm going to look at recent evidence that actually England have started tournaments well. It's often been our second game that has been England's kind of poor one. Obviously, it was USA in the World Cup, and then before that, it was the Scotland game that we drew 0-0. So I do think that we will win tomorrow. I'm going to go for something like 3-1. I think that you can read way too much into the Iceland game. I think that nearly all nations have had all the big nations have had poor friendly results. France drew with Canada. Like, there's too many to name of just random results that have happened in the last
give them their full
weeks.
name. Jesse Marsh. Jesse Marsh is Canada.
Yes.
K Plum in the chat says, have some faith, Rod. You're English after all. I'm as American as Kenny Powers now, K Plum. By the way, one other awful storyline to watch. German police have spoken up publicly about concerns of an intelligence gap in the level of aggression, is their term, for the latest generation of English football fans like Sammy, as the supporters gather in Germany for their first ever post-COVID Euros. The game against Serbia tomorrow has actually been designated as high risk due to just the toxic mix of elements of the two groups of supporters. I want to be clear, this is elements of the support. A lot of the Serbian fan base is phenomenal. Most of the English fan base, bunch of characters, but both have real elements who are going for a bit of argy-bargy. The Serbians actually have a large group of ultras who are very pro-Putin. And so the organisers have reduced, this is amazing, all the beer sold at the stadium to low alcohol, which I'm like, yeah, that'll solve it. They said we're doing that to lower aggression levels. I'm not sure if they're also lowering the quality of the cocaine sold around the stadium and also lowering the ardent nature of the pro-Putin political views, which I think are probably more of a greater driver of the violence that, please God, will not happen tomorrow than the beers. But sometimes it's the small things. By the way, I'll be live after that England game with none other than the great Rebecca Lowe, whom you may know from such movies as the Premier League on NBC. So come and join us here tomorrow. One other quick piece of news before we take your questions. Massive day for Brighton fans. New coach unveiled. And he's got American roots. An American-born gent, Fabian Hertzela, will be the replacement for the wet hair gel stylings of Roberto De Zerbi. Hertzela, who is 31. I mean, he's 31. Even Yamal would say, that's young. That is bloody young. Guided St. Pauli to promotion in the Bundesliga last season. He becomes the youngest permanent manager in Premier League history. By the way, there's so much about him that I love. He was born in Texas, in Houston. His parents, German-born mum, Swiss dad, were temporarily working. Lived there for his first 2 years before moving to Germany. I think he considers himself like David Wagner, who actually played for the United States. But we asked David Wagner if he's American. He's like, nope. Considered himself fully German. But 31 years of age, I think that's half of Danny Welbeck's age. About a quarter of Lewis Dunk's. Can't wait to see him and his 2 tattoo sleeves on the Premier League sidelines next season. What do you think of him, Sammy? Here's the god of football, and 10 years from now, street, good friends living large in Texas. He's going to be magic.
Yeah, I wouldn't claim to know a huge amount about what he's done, but I think his promotions at St. Pauli, and then that club has not been in the Bundesliga for an awfully long time, an absolutely crazy German club, and he has done wonders there. Brighton always get it right. Brighton just always get it right. So you can sit here and say, oh, it seems a little bit of a gamble. When Brighton never ever get it wrong.
That's so funny. That's so funny. We had Brighton's CEO Paul Barber join me for an interview about a month ago. It's one of my favourite we did last year. Find it. It's on our pod feed. It's on our YouTube. He said to me, amazing. He said, the day you hire a new manager is the day you start looking for your next new manager. So I do wonder what's going on there today, whether he's just typing the word Sean and Deutsch into his Google, which I'm sure is pretty well the way they do it. God bless. I love your theory that Brighton never get it wrong. Teams never get it wrong until they do. Okay, to your question. By the way, I hope he's not got it wrong, because I love Brighton and Hove Albion. They give me joy. They give me life. I love everything about them. So please, God, all of it will just be just the most gracious, intense, and uplifting fit. To your questions, reminder of how this works here on YouTube Live. Scan that QR code in the top left of your screen, or click on the pinned comment in the chat. Take you to a Zoom with our producer J-Dubs, who's really the puppet master of all of this. One of the most incredible human beings in the world. It's also almost his birthday. So give him some love. He'll tell you everything you need to know. Do not worry. You won't appear on screen, because I know I'm soiling your day by appearing on screen. For those of you who don't want to ask a question, smash that like button. Let's start with, it's Gustavo. Tell us where you're from. What's your question, beautiful?
Hey, Raj. I'm from Central Florida area. It's a city called Lakeland.
Lakeland. Sounds like a historic part of Florida, Gustavo. I've got many.
Yeah, a little bit. It's named after lakes, so there's something.
I know
there.
that's part of the reason. There's not. Florida's a complicated place, but one of the things I love about Florida is they kind of half-ass a lot of the naming at a certain point. They're just like, okay, we're not even going to try anymore. We'll just, let's go some lakes here. Let's just call it Lakeland. By the way, were you at the game? Were you at the Brazilian game? The 1-1 loss to the 1-1 loss against the United States. There were so many at the game, man.
Yeah, no, I actually have never been to that stadium. I want to go. It's just one of those things. I haven't actually made the time to go.
Are you Brazilian, Gustavo?
No, I'm Colombian.
Hey! Oh my God! You are our daddy, Gustavo. Oh my
That's
God!
Right.
By the way, can I ask you, because I know you've got a question for me. The United States, though, when you smashed us, did that surprise you? Or were you just like, yeah, I mean, these are just two different weight classes? I'm trying to work out right now, Gustavo, which is a real US team. I spent time with Joe Scally this morning asking him that question. Which is a real US team? Was it the one that beat Brazil 1-1? Or is it the team that absolutely got smothered, overwhelmed, self-destructed against Colombia? Were you surprised? Or were you like, yeah, Colombia, this is what we do?
I think I was surprised just because of the form of the U.S. I thought that their players were going to come and do a little better. I guess everybody always talks about Greg, right? And maybe he didn't plan the game properly or whatever it was. But yeah, Colombia, as you guys have said it, and it's still on the records. They're playing today actually. They just scored their third goal, so they're in a 23 game unbeaten run.
You might
And that's
want
amazing
to
for
tell
us.
your coach, Gustavo, about another rule that we have, which is scientific and true. Do not score all your tournament goals too early. Maybe you're falling into that trap, baby. But what was your question? Tell us what you came here to ask.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, it kind of has to do with Colombia too, but just all these players that are playing these big international competitions now. Just wondering what your take is on their fitness levels, because I noticed even with players that now where they're winning games, they're trying to manage their minutes and take Tony Kroos out after the halftime because they don't really need him anymore and that type of thing.
Sammy,
If
are
maybe
people
that
talking?
affects the level of the
Oh, big
tournament.
time. Big time. I mean, Sammy, are people talking about that in England at all? I mean, when I watch the Iceland game, I think you're right to say do not read too much into it and all that crap. Another rule, we don't read too much into international friendlies. But so many of those players, Saka looked utterly shattered. Just from an attacking perspective, particularly, which is the strength of England, there were so many dead legs there. Is there any conversation about that? Because your motto is football don't sleep on early kickoff. Football don't sleep, and neither do we. I mean, the calendar has never been more unforgiving for these elite footballers.
I mean, I don't think people are talking about it too much, and I do think that sometimes legginess shows in matches like friendlies, and then when it comes to the real thing, players just find a depth, don't they? They find a different gear, and I think sometimes tiredness can come in towards the end of tournaments, but I think you're seeing even in today, I think there's not been one game or one player I've been like, oh, he looks a bit leggy. I think when you get into those opening group stages, everyone's had 2 or 3 weeks to kind of, change the pace from club football. I think for me right now, like last season wasn't anything extraordinary in terms of the amount of games. It's next year and the year after that, when you add the Club World Cup in, when you add in the expanded Champions League, that's where I actually start to wonder whether this is going to get unsustainable. This current format of football has been sustainable for the best part of 25 years. We've kind of had this amount of games, but it's the upcoming few years where I do actually think that we're going to start seeing this more and more, and this is actually going to start becoming an issue.
The thing I do worry about is that jerry-rigged 2022 World Cup, which uprooted the whole calendar and made that year, and also the pandemic right before it, which kind of shattered the traditional rhythm. When you speak to these footballers, they are absolutely not just physically shattered, mentally shattered. And these Premier League footballers, the English team, many of the ones that are playing for Manchester City, just a workload, the 60 plus games on these young bodies. There is almost no, Gustavo, time for recovery for these footballers. And they're almost in an unprecedented moment in time where they don't quite know what the effect of this wear and tear and relentless footballing schedule on those young bodies is going to be. I mean, I've told this story before, but I think it's an important one. It's an important one, by the way, for men's football. It's a really important one for women's football too, where the calendar is exploding. There's so much new real estate of tournament just being flung in, which we welcome, because it represents a reflection of the growth of the women's game. But a lot of the players are rightfully fearful about, because obviously it's going on at the same time where there's a very little understanding of women's sports science and why so many elite women's footballers are tearing ACLs at an unprecedented and clearly accompanying connected rate. So when I used to travel around making a film ahead of the 2014 World Cup, and went to the Netherlands to speak to Aaron Johansson, the Icelandic American who'd had the season of his life at AZ Alkmaar. He's a young kid. He was early 20s, playing a World Cup qualifying at the United States, but also that year AZ went deep into the Europa League. And he said to me, I think he'd played 63 games, give or take, that season, off camera. We were walking through Alkmaar, which is a beautiful little canal town. And he said, I am shattered. He said, I've never played this many games. I genuinely feel it in my legs. I can't recover. I don't know how to recover. Ultimately, his career never really recovered. His career was one of a sweet and wonderful man, unfulfilled promise, injury, and that ultimately went in a upward trajectory and then plummeted. So we will see. We will see. I hope. I mean, ultimately, I hope that none of this is the case and that England have the game of their life. A tournament like this with England going deep is, I mean, it's magical, particularly for the American fan. I think so many American fans connect to this team. The Italian team, obviously the huge Italian-American diaspora. But for England to go deep would be a thing of joy. Gustavo, come be with me and Rebecca Lowe tomorrow, and we'll be able to talk with actual knowledge, having bloody watched them. But Godspeed to you, mate. Your Colombians beating up the Bolivians. I hope you score more than 5-1 so we get a moral victory before we play Bolivia in that first game of the Copa. Call anytime, you gorgeous man. Thank you. Oh, it's an old stalwart. We're going to take 2 quick more ones before we pop off. It's a great... Oh, Joshua Youngerman. Remind us where you're from and what's your question.
I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
You always sound shocked when you remember that fact, Joshua.
Well, I'm locked out of my apartment right now, so I have nothing better to do than to call you guys. Maybe you can help me get.
How did this happen? Talk to us.
I'm an idiot, Roger. That's how.
Yeah, but really, I'm a human being that's locked myself out of my apartment many times, so I am quite fascinated to live with you. How did you do it?
Well, I forgot my keys in my apartment because I was going to my local bar to watch the Spain-Croatia game.
Yes.
And I didn't leave an extra set out, which I usually do, and I live alone. So now I have to wait till the locksmith.
God bless. You need to leave an extra set of
I
keys
thought you could let
behind the plant pot. Behind the plant pot to the left of the front door. Joshua, this is a J-Dubs idea. Producer J-Dubs has just texted me to say, bloody hell, Youngerman, do you not know basic football fandom means you always leave an extra set of keys behind the bot?
Next time.
God bless. That's whenever you get robbed, then it was Mo who did it. But tell us what your question is. You amazing man.
Yeah. So I hope England win too, because I lived there for a while, and that team has a special place in my heart. But I'm gonna make a reckless prediction, and I want you to tell me if I'm either being reckless or I should go to what betting company sponsors you again?
Are you talking about Prize Picks? It's a fantasy sport.
Yeah. I should go to Prize Picks and bet this.
Yeah,
right now.
I like this. I like this theory you're unspooling here. I'm going to make a reckless decision. You tell me if it's reckless or not. Okay, you match your sense of recklessness against ours, Josh.
You're basically my football therapist, so. I think, game. And he's currently the leader of the competition. I think that Kai Havertz could win the Golden Boot in this competition, just based on the fact that he's in a system that's so perfect for him right now in Germany, with the German team, and he's going to get a lot of opportunities to score, and their attack is so potent. I mean, I know they have a lot harder competition coming up for sure. But I see them going far, and I think Arteta has clearly unlocked something, but I also think Nagelsmann has unlocked something in this player, and I just think the system is set up for him to really have an amazing tournament and possibly win the Golden.
God, that Shakira Waka Waka song is going to sound terrifying in German. As you're about to find out, Sammy, what do you think? Kai Havertz, baby.
I think that Arteta saw something in him that none of the rest of us did, didn't he? And with Arteta and Nagelsmann moulding him into this unreal player, I think top scorer is... I just don't know if he's going to quite get the 2s and 3s that I think you need in order to get to that top scorer. He's never really been that kind of a striker, attacking midfielder that really grabs lots of goals in the game. He often just grabs one. So I can't quite see him being top scorer, but it's a great outside bet. I bet you'd get decent odds on that. And I think all the usual suspects, your Mbappes and your Kanes, you're not going to get any kind of a return with. So I think that despite you obviously, not being in a great place right now in terms of the fact that you've lost your keys, I think your head's in a good space in terms of who you might be backing as that dark horse.
I think the thing that I find not just wrong in your theory, though, Joshua Youngerman, but borderline humanly offensive, is that it's Nicholas Fulkrug Eurasia. So, it's hard to eat like that when Fulkrug is also at the table, if you know what I mean. So I'm still leaving all my money on Big Nick. But I love your question. I really love your question because it is a reminder. And again, we're working off scant evidence here, people. We are working off scant evidence. One game, 90 minutes. We've got to resist the urge to crown champions. But I do think your question hints at an advantage, a competitive advantage that this German team do. And I'm sure Nagelsmann's walking around the German camp. He's got deeply intelligent footballers, Kai Havertz, and that's what Arteta saw in him. This is a deeply, and you speak to the other players, they're blown away by his tactical intelligence and how it manifests on the field. I think he's going to be an incredible manager. I think he's going to be one of those guys that kind of moves into management and then is coveted by every team just because of his truly deep and profound understanding of the game. And international football doesn't really have that. It's a cruder game. When England have been good, how have they done it? They've done it with defending, conservative football, the double pivot, and working out to nick goals, obsessing about set pieces, throw-ins, corners, free kicks. That's international football as we know it in this iteration. But there is the possibility that Germany do have this next evolution of an intelligent set of footballers with an intelligent manager. Nagelsmann is not, I'll say this again, and he won't be for long. He's not an international manager. International managers love working on their golf game. They love, eating well. They love going around the big cities of the world. It's not a serious job if you're serious and young in football. Nagelsmann took it for almost a redemption, almost a sabbatical, almost to, Germany. In Germany, when you have a World Cup at home, I'm just saying, when you have a World Cup at home, it's massive for a manager to manage their team at home. And so there's many reasons he took the job, but he's not an international manager. Having that brilliant brain as manager and a brilliant brain like Kai Havertz and several of, Wirtz, bloody similar. Musiala, bloody similar. Tony Kroos, of course he came back. Do you want to be part of this brilliant brain trust? Yeah, I'll ride with you one more time. It is really going to be fascinating watching them try and think their way through this tournament as much as play it. Josh Youngerman, please come back on tomorrow. Tell us how you got into your apartment, if you got into your apartment, if you need to sleep the night at Men in Blazers World Headquarters. We've always got a futon for you, baby. Let's wrap this one up with a final call. Let's hope she's got her house keys. Oh, welcome back. It's Christina Stotts. Remind us where you are, old Stotty, and tell us what your question is. Oh, it's not like Christina Stotts to be so quiet. But I do know what her question was. She's got a unmute. You've got to unmute, Christina. Come on. You know that. It's not your first rodeo.
No, it's not. I am here from Joplin, Missouri, and my question is for the lovely Sammy James.
Yes.
You mentioned recently that you want to come to the magical city of Kansas City. Would you want to do an early morning kickoff summer holiday in Kansas City?
Absolutely. We haven't done it. Well, this is our first summer holiday, the one to Germany that's starting tomorrow. But I think that's a perfect summer holiday number 2. Can we make those stars align, Rog?
Bloody hell, Christina Stotts. Did Sammy pay you to ask this? We just got him to bloody Germany. Honestly, I had to sell a lung on an illegal market somewhere to be able to pull this off. And you're trying to like yank him off to Kansas City. I will tell you, however. And by the way, when you tell him about some of the crap we ate at KC Joe's, that Z-Man at KC Joe's, where else did we go in Kansas City? We went to the First World War Museum, which was truly remarkable. We went to the Negro League Baseball Museum, which is one of my favourite musea in all of the United States of America. Some of the crap we ate in your city was borderline ecstasy. Betty Ray's for breakfast. I actually ate ice cream for breakfast. I went and got a burger at Town Topic, which was just one of the most chilled out vibes at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I adored all of it. But we're coming back to Kansas City, Missouri, June the 30th. We're actually playing at the Madrid Theatre with Brendan Hunt, Christina Stotts. Tickets just gone on sale on our website the night before the US play. We'll be in Kansas City. I hope you can come, raise a pint with us. We'll be in Atlanta, Georgia, June 26th. We'll be in Los Angeles next week, June the 19th, at the El Rey Theatre. Oh, best Ray since Hudson. Charlotte, North Carolina. We're coming for you, July the 9th. Come be with us, GFOPs. Christina Stotts, I cannot wait to be with you. Sammy, you are getting up at like crazy o'clock to fly. You're going to tell us how you get it. You're flying to the Netherlands and then you train it into Germany, right?
Yeah, so London to Eindhoven, the old US football factory.
Yeah.
There, but not stopping. We then get 3 trains to a little town called Duisburg, which there's a bit of a football mecca, right, in Germany, the Rhine-Ruhr Valley. There's actually 4 stadiums all within about a metro ride of one another. So you've got Dusseldorf, you've got Gelsenkirchen, you've got Cologne, and you've got Dortmund, all within about 20 to 25 minutes S-Bahn between each other. So we're staying in a little town called Duisburg, which kind of is in between them all. And then we can just pop off each day to a game. So I think we're doing a game every day except the Wednesday, but we're still going to go down to Cologne where Scotland are playing Switzerland and soak up the Scots. So yeah, it's this little football mecca in Germany. You know, lots of the stadiums, Frankfurt and Berlin and Munich are a long, long way away, but 4 of them just happen to be in this nice little neat area, which is where we're heading to.
God, and you are going to be creating content for us on the daily. When you go to the Scotland game, you're going to get hammered just by contact high. But tell us how it's going to affect the Early Kickoff podcast, which you can find on its own feed. Men in Blazers, Early Kickoff. One of the joys of my day is to listen to that for 10 to 12 minutes every morning. Tell us what you're going to do. The link, by the way, is in the chat right now to subscribe to Early Kickoff to hear a load more, Sammy. Tell us what you and the great George, what a team, are going to do from Germany on the ground.
Well, we're just going to hopefully try and give an audio flavour of what it's like to be at the European Championships in Germany. And whilst everyone waits for the Copa America to get underway, you can kind of live and breathe and experience the Euros via Early Kickoff. And from our point of view, Rog, we get an extra hour to make it. So we're delighted because...
You never
God
coming
bless the
home.
time difference.
You
we
never
get an
coming
extra hour
home.
in bed.
When your grandchildren ask you in German, Grandvater, when did you move to Germany? You'll say, well, that's a very interesting question. We didn't actually like Germany. It just gave us an extra hour to make Early Kickoff, and that's why we live here now. Here's a look at everything else coming up at Men in Blazers World Headquarters next week. We are back here on YouTube, live throughout this summer of soccer. Tomorrow we will be back. All of it brought to you by our friends at BMW, who have done so much to power us through this incredible summer. Starting tomorrow with the mother of dragons, Rebecca Lowe herself. We'll talk about that England game. 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be live on YouTube. Becca Lowe and me. Do not miss that. But then Monday, series of Copa America previews brought to you by Dove Men Plus Care, in which Hurt Gomez and I go deep. First of all, on the US team's hopes and dreams, then what the rest of the field looks like, and then spend some time talking about Canada with their new manager, Mr. Jesse Marsh, which is an incredible moment, I think, for CONCACAF. Him going up north and just going full on northern exposure. Do not miss it. Remember, Los Angeles, we're coming to you next week, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. local time, the El Rey Theatre. Tickets available on our social. Come be with us. Come be with Brendan. And honestly, it's going to be amazing. And the last word today, it's been fascinating to hear Brazilian legend Ronaldinho declare That's it, guys. I will not watch any Brazilian game at the Copa America or celebrate any victory. I've had enough. It's a sad moment for those who love Brazilian football. This is a real quote. It's hard now to find the spirit to watch the games. It's one of the worst teams in recent years. No respectable leaders, only average players. I've never seen a situation as bad as this. Lack of love for Brazil shirt and lack of football. You lose 1-1 to the United States. And let's just say the result hit us hard down there, as I think it did up here in the United States, but for different reasons. And I love it. I love you too, Sammy. You and George. Early. Do not miss that flight. Travel safely, you beautiful human being. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Rog.
And thanks to you, America. This is Rog saying big love. Come on, England, and courage.